Good day, learners! Today, we are going to discuss how to solve quadratic equations by factoring. But let us first have a recall of factoring. Again, a factor is a number or quantity that when multiplied to another number would produce a given number. For example, what are the factors of 24? So it could be 6 times 4 or negative 6 times negative 4 because negative times negative is positive. It could also be positive 8 times positive 3 or negative 8 times negative 3. 24 times 1, negative 24 times negative 1 are also factors of 24. Same thing with positive 12 times positive 2 and negative 12 times negative 2. So these are the factors of 24. How about the factors of 48? So there are a lot of factors of 48. It could be 48 times 1, negative 48 times negative 1, positive 24 times positive 2, negative 24 times negative 2, 8 times 6, negative 8 times negative 6, some more. It could also be 16 times 3 or negative 16 times negative 3. Or is there any more factors of 48? It could be 12 times 4 or negative 12 times negative 4. Alright, so these are the factors of 48. Now suppose you were given a binomial like this. 10x minus 50. How are we going to factor this out? So all you need to do is to find out the common factor between the first term 10x and the second term negative 50. Again, you just have to list down the factors of the numerical coefficients. And in this case, that's 10 and 50 or negative 50. So it could be 5 times 2, 10 times 1, right? And this one could be 5 times 10, 50 times 1, 25 times 2. Okay? So the common factors there are 5, 10, 2, and of course 1. However, if we are using common monomial factor, we must choose the highest common factor. And in this case, that is 10. Since 10 is a common factor, we are going to write 10 times the quantity of what is left inside the parenthesis. So that is, if this is 10x and 10 is a common factor, so you still have x here inside the parenthesis. Now since this is negative 50 and you got 10 as the common factor, so you still have negative 5 inside the parenthesis. So if you are going to check, 10 times x is still 10x. 10 times negative 5, that's negative 50, meaning your factors are correct. How about this one? 4x squared plus 12x. Okay? Once again, look at the numerical coefficients, the numbers. That's 4 and 12. So what are the factors of 4? It could be 4 times 1, 2 times 2. And the factors of 12 are 12 times 1, 4 times 3, 6 times 2. Once again, there are a lot of factors. 4, 2, 1. and the highest among them is 4. Therefore, the common factor of 4 and 12 is 4. Okay? The highest common factor. Now, let's proceed to the literal coefficient. So, this is x squared. That means x times x. And this x means x times 1. So, what is the common factor? That is x. So, you write x beside 4. So, what is left inside the parenthesis is, since 4 is already outside the common factor, x squared. So, we still have x inside the parenthesis. Plus, again, the factors of 12 are 4 times 3. Since 4 is a common factor, we still have 3 inside the parenthesis. Now, since x is already the common factor, you don't need to write x inside the parenthesis anymore. So, this is now the factors of 4x squared plus 12x. Let us check. 4x times x, 4x squared, 4x times positive 3, that's positive 12x. Okay? Now, what if you were given a trinomial? How are we going to factor this out? So, all you need to do is to factor out first the first term. So, what are the factors of z squared? That is z times z. Let us separate the factors of z squared. Now, proceed to the last term. What are the factors of positive 1? It could be positive 1 times positive 1 or negative 1 times negative 1. So, positive 1 times positive 1 or negative 1 times negative 1. Which of these are we going to choose? Choose the factors that when you add, you are going to get the middle term positive 2z. And correct, that is positive 1 and positive 1. Okay? So these are now the factors of this trinomial. If you are going to check, you can just apply the FOIL method. Z times z, z squared. Outer terms, z times positive 1 is positive z. Inner terms, positive 1 times positive z is positive z. And the last terms, positive 1 times positive 1 is positive 1. Combine the like terms, so z squared plus 2z plus 1, you still got the original given, meaning your factors are correct. Let us now apply the concept of factoring in solving quadratic equations. So let's start. Suppose you were given 3x squared minus 9x equals 0. Okay? So all you need to do is to find out the common factor of the numerical coefficient and the common factor of the literal coefficient. So those are, so what is the common factor of 3 and 9? That is 3. What is the common factor of x squared and x? That is x. So, since 3x is a common factor, what is left in the first term is just x. So, we write that inside the parenthesis. Now, since this is negative 9x and 3x is already outside because of this, because this is a common monomial factor, we still have negative 3 inside the parenthesis. Eliminating x because x is already a factor or common factor. So, let us check. 3 times x is still 3x squared. 3x times negative 3 would give us negative 9x equals 0. Okay? Now, this is not yet the final answer because we are after solving this given quadratic equation. And if we are solving, we have to get values of x. Okay? So what are we going to do? First, you must separate the factors 3x here and x minus 3 there. And the next step should be, after factoring out the given quadratic equation, is to apply the zero product property. Meaning, we are going to equate each of the factors by 0. Now, let's try to find out the values of x. Okay? So, for us to get the value of the first x, since it has a numerical coefficient of 3, we have to eliminate the numerical coefficient. So, all you need to do is to divide both sides, by the numerical coefficient of x. So, that is 3. Divide both sides by 3. So, this will be cancelled or eliminated. We now have x. Now, 0 divided by 3 is 0. So, this is now the first value of x. Now, on the second value of x, we have x minus 3 equals 0. Again, since the operation between the first term and the second term is subtraction, and if it's subtraction or addition, you may just transpose it or add positive 3 on both sides of the equation. So we have x equals, when you transpose negative 3 to the other side, it will become positive 3. So this is now the second value of x. So there are two values of x, 0 and positive 3. Let us have this example. Suppose you were given d squared minus 10d plus 21 equals 0. The first step is to identify if the given quadratic equation is written in standard form. And yes, it is already given in standard form. So meaning, quadratic term comes first, followed by the linear term, then the constant term. Now, the second step is to factor this out. Again, in factoring out a general trinomial, all you need to do is to factor out the first term. So, the factors of d squared is d times d. Now, let us factor out the last term, 21. So, what are the factors of 21? So, it could be 7 times 3, or negative 7 times negative 3, 21 times positive 21, negative 21 times negative 1. Okay? So, which of these factors are we going to use? Okay? Now, you have to take the second term as your reference. The second term is negative 10d. So, these factors must produce negative 10 when you add them. So, which of these factors would give us negative 10 when added? So, this is 7 plus 3, positive 10, negative 7 plus negative 3, negative 10, 21 plus 1, 22, negative 21 plus negative 21 is negative 22. So, that's right. The middle term is negative 10d, negative 10. So, meaning the factors that we are going to get are negative 7 and negative 3. Alright? So, we are done with factoring out the given quadratic equation. Now, for us to get the values of d, you have to apply the zero product property, wherein d minus 7, or the first factor, would be equal to 0, and the second factor, d minus 3, would again be equal to 0. So, the first value of d, by transposing the constant term to the other side, would give us positive 7, and the second value of d is positive 3. These are now the values of d. Let us have the last example. So, suppose you were given x squared plus 6x equals 16. Again, the first thing you must do is to identify if the given quadratic equation is already written in standard form. So, for us to transform this into standard form of quadratic equation, we just have to transpose the constant term to this side of the equation. So, that would be x squared plus 6x minus 16 equals 0. Okay? Now, since this is already in standard form, we may now start factoring. So, again, we have to factor out the first term x squared. So, that is x times x. Now, again, we have to factor out the last term, negative 16. Since this is a negative integer, the factors must be the other one is positive and the other one is negative. So it could be negative 8 times positive 2 or negative 2 times positive 8. It could also be negative 16 and positive 1 and negative 1 times positive 16. Or negative 4 times positive 4. Now, since we have already listed down all of the factors of the third term, negative 16, let's find out which of these factors, when added, would give us the middle term, positive 6. Okay? So, negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6. Negative 2 plus 8 is positive 6. Negative 16 plus 1 is negative 15. Negative 1 plus 16 is positive 15. And negative 4 plus 4 is 0. Once again, the middle term is 6. Therefore, we are looking for negative 2 and positive 8 as the factors of negative 16. So these are now the factors of this given quadratic equation. Now, third step is to apply the zero product property for us to find out the values of x. So x minus 2 equals 0 and x plus 8 equals 0. So the first value of x is positive 2 and the second value of x is negative 8. So these are now